Does anyone remember the Twilight movies? Did you ever watch them? They're absolutely insane. And the fact that the core of the story is a love story really gives a lot of meat to talk about in them, and how the dating dynamics work, the love triangle works, and how it all doesn't work as a movie. So that's what we're going to talk about today on episode 2. But first, we got this video of this guy. He went on a date, took a girl to Starbucks, and this is her reaction.
You guys ready?
I'm gonna take you back home. I'm gonna take you back home where you can get yourself some cup noodles or something.
You want to take me home? I look like this in your car right now, and you want to take me home.
Yeah, I'm gonna take you home.
You sure about that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So now we're not going on the date because you don't want to pay more than Starbucks.
Oh, it's not bad. Money's no option.
So if money's no option, then why aren't we going on the date? Like an actual date?
Because one, you trying to put me on blast.
He knows. Like, I mean, how do you even explain it to a person like this? You know what I mean?
As like you got your phone out filming this interaction right now.
Okay,
For what
because
reason?
I thought I was getting pranked at this point.
Okay.
Like, it feels like it's not real because I've never had a grown man take me to Starbucks for a date. What is this, high school?
I'm gonna do you one better.
The best dates you can go on are something simple like coffee. That's why it's so common, is because there's no pressure. You don't have to like order and eat an entire meal in front of the other person. Like, that's awkward. You're sitting there scarfing down an entire steak and potatoes in front of somebody who you don't even know. Coffee is a perfect first date, and I don't even know what she's getting at. She's like, I'm here looking like this. Like, is she wearing like an evening dress? Is she ready to go to the theater? I don't know what she's even talking about, because he's wearing like a tank top kind of shirt, and just insanely snobby of her. And yeah, why is she recording him? Clearly she has bad intentions here, and he's smart to just drop her off at home, because guaranteed before she busted out the phone she was complaining like, what, you took me to Starbucks? I deserve you to drop like $400 on this, even though you don't know me and I'm a terrible person.
I'm not even gonna take you home.
You know what?
Any we'll pull over right
Are
here.
you
Just
serious?
dropped her off at the
Yeah,
curb.
get out.
Serious? Are you?
At a bus
Going
stop, yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Go back on your profile. Ask one of them
Whatever.
dudes to pick you up, take you out.
Ladies, this man right here is broke. He's broke. Look at it.
He just says, yeah, whatever. Bro, he just kicked that bitch out of the car. That was the funniest fucking thing I had seen, like, yesterday. He's like,
That's exactly what you need to do in these situations, guys. If you go on a date and somebody's immediately giving you attitude and complaining about going to Starbucks, well, first off, Starbucks is like the most overpriced coffee place, and they have overpriced food. They have decent food. It's kind of a nice place, and it's overpriced to begin with. It's insane to expect someone to pay for like a huge, insanely overpriced dinner, like top of the top place around. That's stupid. That's crazy. That doesn't lend itself to a good date. If the only thing you care about on a date is how much money the guy is spending on you, then you're just a trash bag. And yeah, this guy made the right choice. He offered her a ride home. She continued to just run her mouth and run her mouth. He doesn't need to give you a ride home, and I'm glad that he didn't. I've been in a similar situation, honestly, where somebody had, I was literally giving them a ride home because we had broken up, and she wasn't even necessarily like giving me attitude like that, but it had just been eating away at me how terrible she had treated me. So I'm like, you know what, just get out of the vehicle. I parked at a coffee shop, and I'm like, all right, like I've been driving you for a little bit. I've driven you half of the way home. I don't feel like I should drive you anymore. And then dropped them off, left. It's the right thing to do. You got to be able to just hit the eject button when people are treating you badly. And that's the way to go, because why give them even one more second of your time if they're going to treat you badly? So we'll move right along to the epic saga that is the Twilight Saga. We have the Twilight Saga Did Not Age Well by Gabby Bell. I've watched one or two of her videos and I like them.
For Twilight for iconic scenes like this.
How long have you been 17?
A while. You better hold on tight, Spider Monkey.
And we all
Yes. So in Twilight, if you didn't know, which I kind of want to introduce you to Twilight, just as she's doing in this video, and explain things, because this is unhinged. This is lunacy. He's like 100 years old, and the female character there, Bella, is 15. So him and his family of vampires are all like 100. One of them's like was in the Civil War, so he's like, I don't know, 200 plus years old. They all just go to high school. They're all 100 plus years old, and they disguise themselves, hide themselves from society, hide their vampirism by all going to a high school and hanging out together. They don't hang out with anybody else. They just go around together. And they all have like the attitude, like the way they carry themselves is as adults. Like literally one of them was in the Civil War, and he kind of acts like it in a way. Like he kind of knows to keep quiet, but he's got this like insane, creepy intensity.
all watched Twilight as kids. I was about 11 in 2008, and so were you. We were all 11 in 2008. I know this review of the Twilight series is coming out about a decade and a half after Twilight had controlled the minds of tweens across the country and started a hot vampire and or werewolf crave in my era, but I had watched the Twilight films as a preteen as they were coming out in theaters. I wasn't particularly crazy about it, I didn't really get it, but I wanted to be included and my friends wanted to go, so I ended up going too. Until about a month ago, I was just like, living as I am doing, and I got really sick over a weekend, so I was kind of couch ridden, and I saw that Twilight was trending on Hulu.
That's kind of how I got into Twilight as well. Basically, my sister was watching it, so I watched it with her. Didn't want to watch it, so then I did. And oh my god, was I shocked. I'm like, alright, guy's 100 years old and he's creeping a high school, trolling a high school for 15-year-olds. Weird. That's insanely creepy. And at the time, there was so much hype. People were comparing this franchise to Harry Potter, even before the first movie came out. And this is no Harry Potter. Like, this is a pile of poop compared to Harry Potter. I was outraged at how bad of a movie this was. Literally the only thing that is competently done in the first Twilight is the cinematography at certain times. It's like, oh, well, they actually shot this in this like cool forest. Beyond that, everything is like irredeemably bad. The plot, the characters, the fact that the characters are like these 100-year-old vampires who hide from being found as vampires by going to high school. And the fact that one of them has a extreme lust for this 15-year-old. This is like disgusting. This is a vile, putrid crap. And Bella's not like a competent, like, you know, like well-developed 15-year-old. She's like this depressed, lonely, desperate, like her parents are divorced. Like she's like mentally like a 12-year-old. Like, this is some greasy stuff, this franchise. And I'm like, how do so many girls and women like this? How could anyone compare this to Harry Potter? So that was my introduction to it. And then there's a scene where they play baseball, and I'm like, this is the most insane thing I've ever seen. I have to watch more of it. And that's how I got hooked.
So I said, fuck it, why not? And it kind of ended up going like this in my household. You wanna watch Twilight with me? Oh no, this stuff is dumb, nah. Dude, this scene, this is from a dream Stephenie Meyer had. And she based the entire movie off of it. Did you know that? Oh shit, really? Can you believe 50 Shades of Grey was based on this? It was wild to me when I remembered that 50 Shades of Grey is based on the Twilight series, but when I rewatched it, it made a lot of sense.
I like watching you sleep.
Oh yeah. Not only is he like going to this high school and creeping on this 15-year-old, he literally watches her sleep. He breaks into her house. Like he has never even had a conversation with her. They don't know each other. They've just made like passing glances at the high school. And he uses his vampire powers to break into her home and watch her sleep.
So these reviews are coming from a rewatch. I hadn't seen any of these films since they came out, so rewatching them fresh as an adult brought a whole new perspective that really went over my head as a kid. I know Twilight is a lot of people's comfort movies. It's okay, I'm not trying to come after your favorite movie. I feel like I have to remind you that I liked these movies. It was really fun watching them as an adult, even if most of the movies were goofy. You are allowed to like them, I'm allowed to goof on them and still have a good time.
Oh yeah, like for sure, absolutely. These movies are incredible. Like they're some of my favorite movies because they're so poorly made. So many of the like shots are goofy, the color correction is goofy, the plot's goofy, the characters are goofy. Everything they try to do is goofy. The CGI is goofy. It's a B movie. It's a B movie franchise. It's a comedy. It's like a romance parody comedy, but the comedy is completely unintentional, which makes it that much more golden and entertaining.
Time watching them. Side note, I'm not reviewing the books here, as you can imagine. I'm just focusing on the movies.
And since you mentioned the books, I feel like maybe the books might be a little bit better. There's definitely an element at play here. A lot of the entertainment value you'll get out of these movies is the incompetent filmmaking and visual storytelling that happens. Yeah, let's roll back into it.
Twilight 1, the 2008 release.
Cold, wet thing.
Overall, this movie is the classic one, but the whole movie is so eerie. And despite the overly blue color grading, the movie is unintentionally a fucking comedy.
Hello?
Bella Swan moves from Arizona to Forks, Washington with her dad, who's a cop, Charlie, and her mom is dating some minor league baseball player in Jacksonville, Florida. It never matters in the movie. No one cares about minor league Robbie. So overall, it feels like Edward absolutely hates Bella.
Yeah, as you can see there, hopefully they cut back to his face. He looks like he wants to vomit, like,
dude does not
throughout the movie. Like, he's just like intensely staring at her and having these like weird, like he's about to throw up look about him. The thing is that he's a vampire and he wants to drink her blood and have sex with her. So that's what they're trying to portray by him doing this. That's why they're doing it. But they go so over the top that it comes across as though he's like about to just vomit and poop his brains out.
not take her eyes off of her. I know I'm not the first to say this, but Edward and Bella have no chemistry whatsoever. The only reason Edward likes her is because he can't read her mind. Oh yeah, so like every vampire has like a My Hero Academia quirk, and Edward's is that he can read minds, in addition to being a glittery immortal vampire. The whole movie I was kind of thinking how Bella must not have a lot going on up there, and upon watching the whole saga again, I really still think that Bella might be so head empty, no thoughts, that there's nothing for Edward to read.
It's true. So this is him in the high school, staring at her, being insane.
What the fuck? All they do is
So that's the thing about her, is the only thing we learn about Bella throughout the whole franchise is that she kind of likes reading Shakespeare, but she's in high school, so they make you read Shakespeare. She doesn't have any interests or hobbies. Like in the next movie, she sits around for like months at a time doing literally nothing. She has no personality to her whatsoever. There's nothing, like the fact that he's over 100 years old, that he's experienced over a century of things, and he's a vampire, right? Like this guy should be one of the most, and he can read minds. He can read everyone's mind he's ever met, except for like her. This guy should be one of the most like deeply intellectual, deep thinkers, somebody who's looking for somebody sharp and like witty and interesting. But he goes for this like depressed 15-year-old with no personality. This is like the creepiest, weirdest, most terrible like love story you could ever imagine. And we're not that far into it so far. We're like we're to like not even a third of the way through the first movie, and it's this insane.
was argue the whole movie, and throughout the whole series, you'll see that Bella has no decision-making skills. She's consistently making the worst decisions, no matter what it is. She's kind of the definition of thinking with the wrong head, and so many of the scenes go on for an uncomfortable amount of time to...
Oh yeah, like it's just bad filmmaking. Like she keeps speeding up these scenes. Yeah, they're just like staring at each other. They don't talk. They don't have anything in common. They have no reason to have any attraction for each other beyond the physical. Like that's it. This like 115-year-old in love with this 15-year-old, and they have nothing but like, I don't know, like sexual tension. It is freaking gross. And she continually only cares about herself, destroys the lives of the people around her, kind of in a way interjects herself into the life of this vampire family, which yes, they're absolute creeps and morons for trying to hide out in a high school. But she ultimately, like in the later movies, causes like a ton of conflict. She causes like a vampire war several times, like several vampire wars, nearly causes a war between the werewolves and vampires. Genuinely causes like people to die, and she just doesn't care. It just doesn't matter at all. It's completely overlooked in the plot. It's inconsequential, I guess.
do. Why is he laying like that? So we go through this whole movie with Edward saving Bella from the van that almost crushes her, and then they spend the whole movie bickering about how he's so fast and strong. And then she finally does some awesome internet Googling.
Born to win. I am the one that is born to win. Those visors come.
Oh yeah, she Googles vampires. Well, she Googles like super strength and speed, and like being a creepy, creepy pale dude, and it leads her to vampires. Yep, she uses Google.
Oh, well imagine, and finally confronts Edward about it.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
Vampire.
Say it! And then they literally go frolicking in some fields and stuff, and he introduces her to his family, and they bond over the one thing they have in common.
You have so much music. What are you listening to?
Debussy.
And then Bella immediately ruins the moment.
I don't think music ever comes up as a topic again in the franchise.
By not dancing.
I can't dance.
I know you can.
But don't worry, because this is way more fun.
You better hold on tight, Spider Monkey.
So in Twilight, Kristen Stewart's acting is just not as bad as we made fun of them for. However, the face acting definitely gets worse.
In the final movie, I saw it in the theaters, and at the end, there's like a montage of their romance between Bella and Edward. And the person sitting next to me said out loud, a montage of poker face. Because every time it just keeps showing different clips throughout the franchise of Kristen Stewart's face, and it's never like emoting at all.
Worse than other movies. It's amazing how both Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson are actually both good actors and have proven themselves to be since Twilight. It just comes to show what happens when you're given source material like this.
What's in Jacksonville?
How did you know about that?
You didn't answer my question.
Oh, you don't answer any of mine, so... I mean, you don't even say hi to me.
Hi.
But also, for some reason in Twilight, every male character suddenly becomes Johnny Bravo horny for Bella. This kid, Edward, Jacob, and not even just these high school kids. But they do other scenes in this movie that shouldn't be sexual, and kind of make you uncomfortable anyway. Like after Bella gets stitches in the second movie and Dr. Carlisle is stitching her up, she's grabbing onto him and we get like a close-up shot of that in a weird way.
So at this high school, they kind of have this little friend group, but Bella's like doesn't give a crap about them. She's like the most selfish, narcissistic, horrible person in this like movie world. But some of the people like who she's kind of friends with are played by Anna Kendrick and Christian Serratos, who's Anna Kendrick is from like Pitch Perfect and all kinds of other stuff. And then Christian Serratos, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but she plays Rosita in The Walking Dead. Like, you just have these two bombshell women and then Kristen Stewart. And they make Kristen Stewart, like, they ugly her up for this movie. Like, they make her look as boring and dull as possible to try to, like, get the female viewers into this like fantasy, right? They make her the like every girl, but it doesn't make any logical sense that like every guy is after her when like Anna Kendrick and Rosita from The Walking Dead are in the friend group. Really weird.
Or this other scene in Twilight, when a vampire, James, is about to kill Bella, but gets all up in her face like they're about to passionately make out. I, as an adult, and even as a child, it didn't cross my mind how horny everyone was for Bella, because I was still trying to figure out my multiplication tables. So I decided to call in a Twilight expert to fully understand this phenomenon.
Today is the 23rd of November.
Yep. I've never read the books. Hopefully whoever she talks to has.
Can you explain how long you have loved this movie series?
I went to Catholic school up until 7th grade. And right when I got to 7th grade, when I experienced freedom, dude, it was Twilight everything.
So this has been over a decade in the works.
Yeah.
Okay, so I firstly didn't understand, why did preteens eat this shit up?
I assume that this woman has never read any other books or watched any other movies, because there's no way you can be like this into Twilight unless that's the case. Because if you simply watch 20 films, if you've seen 20 films before you saw Twilight, you'd be like, what's going on here? Like, why is this so crappy?
Up, because the movies themselves are like pretty mature, like within the color grading, the themes, the language, the unclear plot.
To start, we have to take a look back at history.
Okay, opening the history books.
So Twilight, the book, is published in 2005. And like I said, 2008 was when the movie came out. And that's when Breaking Dawn, the final book in the series, was released. And this is the era of...
I didn't know that, but yeah, that's a short amount of time to come out with like 4 books. Or however many books there are. Yeah, it must be 4. So no wonder they're so rushed and like they get so insane in the later installments. Not that the first installments aren't insane. You know, you have vampire baseball, you have glittery vampires who all have like their own individual like superpowers that are separate from each other. You have century-old vampires creeping on high school students. You have homoerotic werewolves. But yeah, the true insanity of the last book kind of makes more sense considering how short these were released from each other.
Of flip phones, of MySpace, of seeing kids, of Heelys, and you might know that one.
Heelys!
So Heelys are shoes with wheels on them. They're really cool. I've never used them, but I've seen people use them, and they're just really cool. It's kind of like rollerblading, but on your regular shoes. I don't really even understand how they're like activated, but they're cool. I feel like they were only when they first came out were they really a trend, where you would see people every so often with them, because maybe around that time was when they were popular. Actually it was like years before that, now that I think of it, that they were really popping off. They were kind of dying down at that point. They're still around, but they've died down tremendously.
This is nearing the end of the like only other book to movie franchise of that time.
Or like maybe 2005, maybe that would be fair. 2005 when the first book came out. All right, then Heelys were probably popular then, but by 2008, nah. They were
period, which is Harry Potter,
not so
the Deathly
famous.
Hallows book, released in the middle of that in 2007. And in that same year, the 5th movie came out, The Order of the Phoenix. So this is like a crazy time in adolescence, our adolescence, but then also like a huge shift in Hollywood where they're like now realizing the influence they can have over a younger audience.
I never made any of these connections to the time period.
Like, this is a young adult series. And these types of books and films flourished in this time frame, especially like when the main character.
Also, the movie Juno came out in 2007. So there was definitely a huge craze going on. She's right, the Harry Potter franchise and this and certain other properties made Hollywood realize like, hey, these are cash cows, like this young adult thing. There is like insanely dedicated fan bases here, and these movies are making a ton of money. We gotta actually put our focus on this kind of stuff. That's how you ended up with stuff like Hunger Games and Divergent and all that, Maze Runner, Ender's Game, I think. All these novels that are geared towards young adults getting movie adaptations. So this was kind of when it was kind of really climbing that Hollywood ladder and becoming really a big mainstream trend. But yeah, the movie Juno in 2007, which was a comedy, which I definitely recommend you watch, was also hugely influential in kind of kickstarting that trend that would that kind of popped up and really died down because like this movie, as you might already realize, so the first Twilight movie came out in 2008. What else came out in 2008? Iron Man came out in 2008. So I think that's ultimately what crushed this trend, was it happened to coincide with stuff like Iron Man in the MCU coming along. It just beating the dog crap out of this young adult stuff. But there really was a genuine trend there, and I think Juno, the movie, ultimately kicked that off because you had so many movies that were clearly inspired by that film, where even though that's a completely different style, I feel like Juno is kind of the opposite of Twilight, where Twilight is like kind of this like shoveled out garbage. Juno is like, all right, we have this really simple film that we want to make, and we're just going to put like love and passion into it and actually like put some style into it, put some care into it, and make, we're going to shoot for the stars and make a really darn good movie. And maybe Juno's a little overrated. Maybe it had too large of a cultural impact on filmmaking in that era, but you know, it's still pretty good. Maybe it's a little
Characters were
overrated,
dealing
but
with
whatever.
like fantasy or otherworldly themes, because like escapism is a really powerful tool. But these books and movies were like the perfect getaway for everybody in that time period. Like that was kind of the only cool thing that existed during that time.
All right, for girls, yeah. Okay. It's kind of a thing where for girls, it was the cool thing. Like Harry Potter was genuinely cool and still is genuinely cool. So Twilight was just like more content for them to consume and get into. So it was like somehow it was cool for girls at the time. It was.
Yeah, because
Sadly, it
preteens
was.
and millennials went to go see these movies alike. Like, the hype was for everyone.
Everyone was Team Edward, Team Jacob.
And what were you?
I started as Team Jacob. I literally had a poster of him with his long hair in my room, and he would just stare at me every day when I came home.
So yeah, I mean, any reasonable person upon watching the first like 2 movies, you gotta be Team Jacob. Jacob's Bella's like best friend. Well, by best friend, I mean a guy who she's friend zoned and strings along endlessly and destroys his life, and potentially destroying the life of his tribe and his people as a as a werewolf versus vampire war breaks out, all because of Bella. But yeah, she strings this guy along, and he's just like the sweetest, nicest guy. But he also is like the nice guy trope. Like he should realize that, hey, this girl's not very into you, back off. She leads him on. She eventually like kisses him. She does everything she can to lead him on, but he's also like that nice guy trademark kind of douchey person. But it's hard to pick up on that in a first viewing of the films,
Home after school.
or like the first 2 films, without having that time to like reflect on who these characters are, which is really hard when you first watch these, right? Like I watched the first one and I'm like, this is one of the worst movies ever made. I love it. You know, in a certain maybe I didn't even feel though that I loved it. I was like so confused and bewildered that when the second one came out and was in theaters, me and my sister and her boyfriend wanted to see a movie, and we actually watched some other movie that was in theaters at the same time. But we're like, it was kind of like early in the evening, it was like late afternoon, and we're like, well, there's time that if we pay to see New Moon, we can watch New Moon and then go watch like Fast and the Furious or whatever action movie was playing. So I'm like, you know what, okay, I'm down to watch New Moon. I kind of didn't want to. I knew it would suck. I knew it would suck terribly. I didn't think it would suck as spectacularly and entertainingly and wonderfully as it did. I didn't think that it would out-suck the first movie, but it out-sucked the first movie. And I was team Jacob. But once you get to the end of this franchise, you realize, oh my god, like these are some of the worst characters. These characters are some of the worst people you could ever imagine being in something.
So embarrassing. But I thought he was so cute. I'm team Charlie.
I'm Team Charlie too.
Yeah, so some people call this guy Mustache Dad. It's Bella's dad. He is just this like gruff talking dad who he knows, it's like he kind of knows that Bella's like a horrible piece of crap of a daughter, but he, you know, he loves her, so he's like, all right, well, stay safe, like, you know. All right, like what's going on here? Whatever, you're not gonna tell me what's going on. And he's like busy, like having to go to work, like he's just a dad. And so because he's such a simple, like almost like relatable human character, he's just a person, he instantly makes him like extremely likable. Because in contrast, you have these like superhumans who are like freak shows, who are not doing what a werewolf or a vampire should be doing.
Okay, great. Thanks, bye.
Oh, wait.
Charlie, Bella's dad, is the only sane character we'll see.
Bella, it's Friday night. Go out.
If someone made an edit that was just the entire Twilight saga from Charlie's point of view, it would be so funny. And he's hot. He is hot.
I did not know he was hot, but he is awesome. He has to be everyone's favorite character watching this. Maybe some of the like later ones are so funny that you could like them. Like Arrow is super cool. I don't know if I like Arrow more than Charlie, but Arrow is pretty awesome. And Arrow's like this incredibly over the top vampire. He's like the president of the vampire collective globally. He's like the leader of these, like, it's so hard to explain. I'm just not going to explain it.
Thank you for letting me take your daughter out, Mr. Swan. I'll take care of her. Promise. Okay. We are going to play baseball. Collins are so fucking weird and pasty.
Yeah, the dad is just so awesome. I would be okay. I mean, it wouldn't work. It works as a like 1 second skip, but as an actual film, it would be too weird to see his perspective, because a lot of it would just be him living his day-to-day life. It would be a good like episode of something.
Bella, I noticed you have a lot of friends that like you, but you don't hang out with them, and you only want to hang out with the one weird kid in school. Why don't you go out and do something with the normal people? Dad, you really want to talk about boys? I literally didn't say that. Why are you doing that? Stop. Bella, how'd you almost get hit by a car? Dad, it's fine. Looks like you'll be just fine. Am I the only normal one here? Why does no one care? Why does no one care? So, we need to talk about the age gap. She is 17 in this movie, and Edward is like 109 years old. This is on par with creepy animes getting away with a 200-year-old demon dating a 15-year-old high school girl. So now we're at the iconic baseball scene.
My monkey man.
This one was really crazy because I just closed my eyes to fall asleep, and then there was 5 entire minutes of loud, weird guitar music playing. In the overly blue, saturated scene, it is so much louder than the rest of the movie. After some more really awesome wire flying work from the crew, we have
The baseball scene is so insane. Like, it can't be like stated enough how wild this scene is. Like, I just imagine you have this like weird, insane vampire human love story in a high school, and the vampires decide to play baseball. It's not just that they decide to play baseball randomly. It's that there's an entire scene. You like see the game happen. I don't know why. No one knows why.
the Black Eyed Peas storming onto the field. Give a round of applause for the Black Eyed Peas, everyone. Dude, I'm so mad. I am not the first one to make this joke. I knew I wasn't, but I completely forgot about the 2010 Vampires Suck Twilight parody that made that exact same joke. Nothing is original. I am not original.
You know who we are, don't you? You're the Black Eyed Peas! Come on, not again.
And they want
It's ridiculous too. Like, she showed They're playing baseball, and the enemy vampires show up. They just roll up, and they're mad. They're ready to crack skulls. And oh my god.
Want to kill Bella. And I never understood why they randomly marched onto the field here. And upon my adult viewing of this movie, I still have no idea. I guess it's just because they heard people playing baseball. And then James sniffs Bella's rank stench and wants a piece of that pie.
You brought a snack.
So then they start acting like the weird kids in the cafeteria at lunch.
Yeah, that's what you're seeing. You're seeing a baseball team. Like they were playing baseball against each other, so they're not like one team. And there's more to it. This is, you're almost missing the entire them playing baseball scene here, but just watch the movie. You'll get to see it and you'll thoroughly enjoy it. Carlisle's wearing a scarf. Emmett there has his hat to the side. Like everyone on screen here is like 100 years old or hundreds of years old. The guy on the far right is the one who was in the Civil War. And yeah, it's crazy. These people are vampires, by the way, on the left. Everyone on screen here is a vampire. Now, why they're in Forks, Washington, why some of them go to a high school, why they all exist as a family is weird. Like, just be neighbors, take over a little section of community. All being one family, and you all literally have different like hair colors and styles and looks to you. It doesn't make any sense. It makes your story that you're a family not really add up. None of them look like they're in high school. The guy with the scarf is the doctor, which comes into play later on in the series. So they're all like 100+ years old. And the only one of them that has any kind of medical experience or training or education is the guy in the scarf, Carlisle. In 100 years of them being, and them being this like unit that works together, has created this vampire family. They never thought maybe, I don't know, maybe one of them should apprentice underneath this Dr. Carlisle and learn some stuff that he knows. Or maybe they're just bored at some point in the last 100 years and think, maybe I'll go to school for something, because I think they're just immortal. Like, unless they get killed by each other or a werewolf or a human, they're going to just live forever. They're not going to age. That's kind of the excuse that they use, is that Edward became a vampire when he was 17 years old, and so he's never aged. But he remembers all these years of existing. They flash back, I think, at 1 or 2 points to him existing 100 years ago. So he's mentally 100 years old. Just physically, he's 17. But yeah, these evil vampires, I think they're just kind of jerks, and they just antagonize the Cullen family.
I think it best if you leave.
And of course it's Twilight, so I can't not mention Jacob, as wear the popular shirtless and jorts outfit.
Alright, I can tell from, I haven't watched this video yet, but I see that she talks about New Moon, and that's what this clip is from. Hopefully she talks about it, because once we finally get to the werewolves, they're all like wearing cut-off denim. Like, they're all wearing like cut-off shorts, and they wrestle around like wearing this. Like, this is, I think it's either before or after they all wrestle each other on the ground, like in the field, in a meadow. They're just like grappling each other, and it's not for like training. It's not for any reason. It's not like they're like trying to get like stronger as a unit or anything. And they are all werewolves, but I don't I don't really know how it works, like with the Hulk's shorts. I don't think their clothes like explodes necessarily, but I don't know. It makes no sense when it happens. It's one of the most homoerotic scenes in any film ever when these guys are rolling around in a meadow wrestling each other. Because they're not training for combat or anything. It doesn't make any sense. It just happens. And it's like, why are they all wearing cut-off denim? This seems like a weird fetish thing. Like the writer or like director just was like, you know, it'd be hot. Let's just get a bunch of native dudes in denim and have them wrestle in a meadow. It's like, all right.
Is born from the werewolf tribe uniform. He really doesn't play a huge part in this movie, which was a funny misremembering. He was, what the fuck was he doing in this movie?
He's practically not in it. He shows up at one point in like the high school and maybe says hi to Bella. And then later on, like right near the end, they're like walking on some weird beach and he's just chit chats with Bella. But she's not leading him on. There's no love triangle yet.
I don't remember.
They're just friends from way back. And they're like, it's kind of like they're reconnecting after not really hanging out for a long period of time. And just like connecting as like, hey you, like we're friends kind of thing, like catching up like strangers.
What was Jacob doing this entire movie?
So Jacob wasn't doing anything, I'll be quite honest. So according to the Bible, Stephanie Myers says that she only put Jacob in the first book as a plot device, literally only to tell Bella about the cold ones, and that's it. And then she sent that draft off to her editor, and her editor loved his character so much that before writing the sequels, she put him in as a bigger part. And that's it. So he literally wasn't doing anything in the first movie.
He was used and abused by Stephanie and Bella. So at the end, one of the Black Eyed Peas dies, and Edward and Bella go to prom together.
Perfect.
And Bella wants to become a vampire, and Edward's like, no. And then it ends. That's it. The end.
Ooh, New Moon. So like I said, went to the movie theater. Was like, oh man, that first Twilight was garbage. You really want to see New Moon? Okay, like I'll roll the dice. I like bad movies. At that point in my life, I knew that I liked a bad movie, you know? And I was genuinely curious, what are they going to do? Like the first one, Blue Chunks. I didn't really think that deeply upon how creepy it is that he's like 100 years older than Bella. Like I understood that it was creepy and wrong, but I didn't think about the complexity of how insane it was that his whole like family was even going to high school. Like it kind of, some of it, I just didn't analyze that deeply. I didn't like watch reviews. I didn't talk about it with anybody. I wasn't really a fan at this point. But watching this changed it all.
It's a new day, new moon. Oh yeah, so Twilight was okay, but New Moon really amps it up. It amps up Bella's facial expressions. It amps up the shirtlessness. It amps up the cuck.
Hello, biceps.
Well, I'm just filling out, Bella.
So the Cullens don't kill people because Dr. Carlisle, Edward's dad, made the whole family become vegetarians, meaning they only eat animal blood rather than human blood, which leads to Jasper, the newest vegetarian in the family. Be normal, 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 be normal.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Nailed it.
It's okay, Jasper. You won't hurt her.
Now some of these clips she's taking out of context, but this one not at all. This is what happens.
Being one of the funniest characters in the movie, and I'm kind of upset he took a backseat after the next one. Anyway, Bella has the absolute worst 18th birthday party ever, and Jasper's just...
She really did just fly across the room there. That's what you just saw. That's what happens in the film. Yeah, like she got launched.
Next one. Anyway, Bella has the absolute...
There's a reason why it doesn't just randomly happen. but that happens.
Worst 18th birthday party ever, and Jasper's just
It's like the first thing that happens in the movie.
sitting there like, which is definitely a cop-out, so now they can make Bella do more sexual things, because it's legal now. Listen, I'm not here to judge love, but the 91-year age difference is something. It's something.
109.
Wow. Maybe I shouldn't be dating such an old man. It's gross. I should be thoroughly repulsed.
This movie's the one where Bella's sitting in front of the window for like 5 months because Edward dumped her and left because it wasn't safe to be with him since people are hunting her down, and it's just so funny. I get that heartbreak feels like this when you're 15, so the scene serves as more of a metaphorical mental state rather than a literal experience, but it's just so goofy, come on. Especially like dumping her and leaving her unattended and unprotected is somehow going to protect her from the Black Eyed Peas trying to hunt her down, as if they know everyone's relationship status. Like, do vampires just update their Facebook status in 2008 on Facebook so the other vampires get the message? So this next bit is supposed to be like a skit, but I had like 1 margarita and I just filmed a skit and I have no idea what I was going for. I have no clue.
That's kind of a good point, right? Like, Bella literally wants to be changed into a vampire. Edward refuses to do it. She bleeds a little bit in front of Jasper. Jasper goes berserk and tries to like kill her temporarily, granted. Like, he calms down. It's just he got like a whiff of her blood and rampaged, but they prevented it, right? But like, she literally wants to be a vampire more than anything else. Just make her a vampire. Like, come on, dude. I don't get why she, especially considering that there's other vampires, why don't they just make her a vampire? Solves a lot of problems, prevents like the vampire civil war, prevents the vampire werewolf war, prevents the the vampire versus new vampire war. There's a lot of vampire war that gets caused by Bella and her not being a vampire.
So please enjoy what I think I was going for with this skit. I don't know. It's complicated. Well, we can't hunt her down now, guys. They're literally not together anymore. Good one. James died for nothing, I guess. Where is the love, the love, the love? And that's how their hit single came to be. Charlie is once again the only rational human being in this movie.
It's just not normal, this behavior, quite frankly.
I mean, that skit was alright. I also don't know what she was going for, but, you know, I appreciate it.
It's scaring the hell out of me and your mother.
And checks on Bella every so often, especially because this is also the movie where Bella is screeching at the top of her lungs non-stop from nightmares because Edward dumped her.
Yep, that's the movie so far. That's what happens. That's what Twilight is. Yeah, it's that bad. It, like, Bella Swan has that little going on for herself. This is the guy who the 100-year-old vampire is after, who he wants to have a relationship with. Yep. Like, really think about how creepy and weird that is, how predatory that is.
Oh.
I will not use ad blocker. I apologize.
I legitimately don't understand how Bella has friends. She's so weird, but people keep wanting to hang out with her who don't match her vibe at all. Oh my god, it looks like I'm wearing a bump it. I'm just gonna leave it like this. So since Edward is gone,
Looks kind of like the nanny from the show The Nanny.
Bella takes the chance to stop playing it
And I mean that as a compliment.
safe and not get hurt because of Edward's overprotecting nature. Which, by the way,
Or Winona Ryder from Beetlejuice. Again, a compliment. You look good.
is an overarching theme throughout the entire series that is so irritating to watch because it never develops. Bella is obviously, to me, feeling a little controlled in a way by Edward, so much that she feels the need to break out and do what she wants to do. But she's just still glued to him for no reason. That, or she's just trying to beg for his attention back by doing dangerous things to bait him. So yeah, she breaks off, and while Edward is gone, she decides to finally get to know her neighbor, Jacob. She hangs out with Jacob a lot the whole movie to repair this motorcycle.
Which is insane. This is so awful that she does this. Because a huge portion of the movie, I don't even understand how much time is passing in the movie. But she keeps hanging out with him as he fixes this like motorcycle for her. He basically makes her a motorcycle. Spends hours and hours, days and days doing this just because she's leading him on. Like, she just uses this guy so hard, and it's brutal, it's disgusting.
And they actually have chemistry. They joke around together, and I think one of the only times that Bella smiles in the whole series is when she's talking to...
That's true. That's a part that I kind of forgot about, is they do actually get along. They seem like they're friends. It's the only time you get like any bit of humanity out of either of their characters.
Jacob. And there's this really weird scene where Bella goes on a date simultaneously with this kid from school and Jacob to the movies at the same time, and it's so weird. I swear the directors just had a kink for this type of cuck shit and nobody noticed until now. So she rides motorcycles and does dangerous things and sees the most hilarious visions of Edward as she's doing them.
Lie better. Threaten him.
Keep walking.
So she keeps intentionally at a point doing dangerous stuff because like Edward is astral projecting himself somehow, or maybe it's all in her mind. So she's doing dangerous stuff to induce this, to make it happen, which is why she gets into like riding motorcycles. It's the most pathetic thing that she could be doing. Like, she could be moving on and having like a good relationship with this Jacob guy who she's actually friends with, and they actually know each other and have things in common and have like a bit of chemistry. They don't just want to bang each other, but she really wants to bang Edward, and she's willing to put her life in danger repeatedly to provoke these hallucinations that she's having of Edward. And that's a significant portion of the movie. Is it bounces between her leading Jacob on, Jacob building a motorcycle for her, and her doing dangerous crap to cause hallucinations of Edward. It's pretty awful.
Turn around. Stop.
Telling her to stop doing dangerous things.
Bella, don't.
Whoa.
Don't do it. Have you flossed today? You fuck.
It's as goofy and insane as, like, she literally just showed the clips of him popping up as a ghost or whatever it is. It's insane. It's not like it makes sense in context of the movie. It's as wild and stupid as it is being clipped out.
Fucking stink. Take a shower. Why would you do that? Would you still love me if I was a worm?
I think she was trying to take advantage of Edward's sister Alice's quirk to see the future by doing dangerous things so that she'll see them and then come back and whatever, I don't know. Jacob starts acting weird. He goes off and acts weird for a while before he comes back from puberty camp where he learned about being a werewolf and shit. And Bella has no idea what's going on. I mean, there's vampires. What are there? Werewolves do? In some sort of multi-century fantasy character rivalry? Yes.
Yeah. SGU put me in the best position to be.
Yep, there's werewolves, and they are not the werewolves you're thinking, just like the vampires are not regular vampires. The werewolves, it's not their werewolfism, because really they're just people who shapeshift into werewolves. But the way they function as a group and what they choose to do is absolute insanity.
Bella finds out that Jacob's a werewolf and got a sexy haircut. Gotta give him more sex appeal for the preteens. Come on, Stephanie. I remember when New Moon came out, it was like Team Jacob, Team Edward frenzy on Facebook. This haircut started a new era of Jacob never putting on a shirt ever again in the series.
He finished with more than 3 seconds to spare, and that's how you become an American.
Yup, that happens. And that's how they use him. He is just a piece of meat in front of the camera. He's just this buff guy who they provide the fan service, and I can't blame them for that, but I don't understand why they put zero effort into making a good movie. Why they have Jacob just simp for Bella the whole time while Bella simps even harder for Edward. And that's like 2/3 of the movie. We're like 2/3 into the movie at this point, and like nothing has happened.
So now that Jacob's a werewolf, he learned about the rivalry and he knows that the Cullens are vampires. And then he says this.
You've been lying to everyone. Charlie.
Who is everyone, Jacob? Charlie? She's lying to everyone by just not shouting from the roof.
Now that's a really funny line. Like, think about how dumb that line just was. Charlie? And then you can't think of one other person. Like, a lot of people theorize about these films and whether or not how much the actors are in on it and how much the like filmmakers are in on the goofiness of what's going on. And it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell which ones understand this is like absolute garbage that they're making and they just embrace it. Because clearly they would have had a lot of fun filming that line because it's dumb, right? It's pretty dumb. And it's goofy. He's like shirtless. There's a lot going on. And for him to do such a dumb line like that, it'd be really hard for the actors and everyone on set to not like kind of start to be in on the garbage that they're shoveling out and not get a little bit of enjoyment out of it. Definitely the guy who plays Arrow, I think his name's like Michael Sheen or something. The guy in the later movies, Arrow, and he's also in this movie at a point, he definitely knows this is some trash. This is absolute trash bag stuff, and he clearly loves it. He goes all out with his performance, and he does everything he can to enjoy himself, and it is beautiful to watch.
Rooftops that she knows a family of vampires in Forks, Washington. But oh yeah, remember the Black-Eyed Peas from the last movie that they kind of forgot about? Don't worry, they're back in this movie, about to be forgotten again. This band of vampires aren't even like a real threat in this movie. Like sure, it's a main plot point, but they're kind of just awful, forgettable, and non-threatening villains.
I mean, I don't remember them in New Moon at all. I remember the homoerotic werewolves, wrestling around in the meadow. I remember the Jacob simping and building Bella, spending a month or possibly months building her a motorcycle. I remember Bella going on the weird throuple date. I remember her doing dangerous stuff to incite the hallucinations of Edward. I remember the beginning where she's sitting around for months, but the Victoria. I don't remember her at all.
You are so mouth-watering.
We all know the real main focus of this movie is to get you to pick whether you're on Team Edward or Team Jacob. By this point, I'll be honest with you, I was pretty much rooting for Team Jacob because, like, Edward is manipulative.
Hey, did you do this to my truck? Bella, you have to understand. Your safety is everything to me.
Boring, has no personality, and he and Bella have literally nothing in common, and she has smiled not once around him.
And he broke into her house to watch her sleep before ever having a conversation with her. That's pretty greasy. That's like one of like several times that he creeps on her before they're ever in a relationship. He's like full on stalking her in a way that only a superpowered vampire could like get away with, in ways you would never expect. Something a human couldn't physically do, or like because of caring about laws and stuff never would do. So yeah, you gotta be Team Jacob, but oh my god, what happens at the end of the franchise with Jacob is so insanely greasy that you can't be Team Jacob at the end.
So I'm like Team Jacob all the way. Until Jacob literally sexually assaults Bella in the third movie. And progressively got more manipulative and desperate as the movies went on. And I was just so done with these men's bullshit. I am telling you. I'm Team Charlie. Anyway, one more member of the Black Eyed Peas dies since the wolves are protecting Bella now. So now there's just Fergie, whose husband was slain by Edward after he tried to nom 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 make Bella a tasty snack.
You brought a snack.
And she literally doesn't matter in this movie. Who cares? But okay. I'm rushing through this because we're not even at the good part yet. So at one point, Jacob is over and they almost kiss, but the phone rings. Classic. He answers their landline, and it's Edward in Rio for some reason. One of the most random things in this series is the Cullens' connection to Rio de Janeiro. Jacob tells Edward that Bella's dad.
So I'll explain that. So I don't know if if Gabby here has reviewed the other films, but the reason that they have a connection to Rio is, this is going to shock you, especially with the fact that this vampire family decides to live in Washington State in America and go to high school. They own an island off the coast of Rio. They own an island, a private island. And there's like, later on in the series, Edward and Bella have their honeymoon there on a private island in like this like beach house. They own a private island. Yeah, but they choose to go to a high school in America. Doesn't make any sense, but okay.
Dad is arranging a funeral and that he's busy and can't talk right now. So Edward thinks it's implied that that means that Bella must have died or killed herself, which means he's gonna kill himself, because that is the rational thing that he would do. Because Edward can't live without her, because she has no thoughts. So back to the Brazil thing. I can't tell you exactly why Brazil being part of the lore is so funny and random to me, because they go back in a future movie to Rio, and it's just like in the middle of Twilight New Moon about the palest, unhappiest people in America.
Yeah, that's another weird thing. Like, why do they own this island near Rio? Like, you're vampires. You're like the palest. Go to a place where there's really pale people. Go to like Russia. You're not affected by the cold. Go to the North Pole. Go to Antarctica. What are you doing? Why would you go somewhere tropical? And then have like a private island, like live in like an apartment building or something where there's not a ton of sunlight. You literally glitter in the sunlight and people will be really confused. Like, why is your skin glittering? Why'd you bathe in glitter?
and it cuts away to Christ the Redeemer and samba music. It's such a stark contrast and audibly made me laugh because I saw this when I was 12. But watching it again as an adult is so much better because now that you've seen good movies, you can go back to watching Twilight and really just appreciate it and enjoy all the goofiness. Apparently in the book, it's explained that Edward follows a false lead from Victoria being in Rio de Janeiro, I guess. So he follows them there, and that's why he's in Rio when he calls Jacob, or he is trying to call Bella, but Jacob answers, you get it, when he calls. I don't know why they would go to Rio. They purposefully came to Forks, Washington, and saw that Bella lived there, so I don't know why they'd leave. They needed a little break, a little vacation, a little football in Ipanema. There's a beautiful theory that someone on Reddit wrote about Rio and New Moon, and it's beautifully written, and it's kind of like how Rio has the statue of Jesus embracing the light no matter who you are, and that's kind of the symbolism of it, and it's warm and it's life, and it's kind of like Edward trying to embrace the light, while in New Moon, Bella is also embracing a world without dark, because the idea of like yin and yang, one can't exist without the other, light cannot exist without dark, and vice versa, but both of them feel out of place without each other as like yin and yang. But honestly, I don't think, even if this was the intention, it doesn't come across that way in the movies at all. I don't know if it does in the books, but there's a reason that it felt really random to me, even if there is symbolism that I didn't quite pick up on.
Yeah, there's no way. The movie's way too incompetently made to even try something like that.
Anyway, f it, we're doing a world tour here. Edward goes to Italy to show his shiny skin at the local
A lot of people kind of blame the source material and be like, well, the books are trash, so of course the movies are going to be trash. Like, I mean, maybe. How much power did the Stephanie Meyer have over this production? Were they not able to make any creative choices? Because they definitely should have. I mean, I'm glad that they didn't, because I love this film. I love New Moon. It is one of those perfect disasters of a film that is just comedy gold in how stupid it is. But I mean, they make so many bad decisions, so much. The plot is so awful and illogical that it just doesn't strike me as making any sense that they wouldn't have at least a tiny bit of creative license to be like, let's just do something that kind of adds up a little. Let's add a little splash of humanity to these characters. I get it. You know, they're vampires, they're werewolves. They're no longer humans anymore, but they once were humans, so it wouldn't take anything away to maybe give their characters a tiny bit of humanity on occasion.
Vampire hating festival, so the vampire government can kill him, because that's illegal in vampire law. So this was the festival of San Marcos, and I just had to look into this. And a surprise to us all in the real world, it is actually, surprisingly, not a day where the city celebrates running vampires out of the city.
They're commemorating the expulsion of vampires from the city. It's the perfect setting.
It's actually the day where they celebrate the liberation of Nazi fascism in Italy. So vampires are cooler, let's make it up. Alice has a That's So Raven vision about Edward wanting to unalive himself in Italy, so Alice takes Bella to Italy so Edward can see that she's alive and blah blah blah. Bella? I give up. I don't give a shit about the vampire government here. I forgot Dakota.
Yeah, the vampire government doesn't really come into play yet. Like, yeah, they do. It's when they first do like get introduced, but it's so weird and they don't explain it other than these guys are in charge of vampires globally. But like, there's no reason, like, how they don't explain how the vampires like communicate with each other internationally, or why this family of vampires like needs to listen to these people. Like, they're in Italy. These vampires live in the United States. How are the like the main guy, who's probably going to show shortly, Arrow, the leader of the vampire government, he has the ability to like read the thoughts that you've had by touching you. He like reads your mind through touch and like reads your memories or something really goofy like that. So if you just don't go to Italy, just don't go and talk to him, he's not gonna know what you've been up to. And later on, there are like vampire defectors who like rat each other out. But it seems like just like this government doesn't make any sense how it functions, because if you don't have people ratting each other out, then the vampire government has no idea what you're doing. How would they ever be able to track you? They don't have no method to do so. It's kind of weak too. I mean, I love them. I love this vampire government, but in this movie, no, there's not enough of them for it to matter. It's like just tacked on the end.
Dakota Fanning was the vampire queen.
Atlantic City.
Oh yeah, how do you film this? How do you have your like the main couple of the franchise in an elevator with these other vampires, and like how do you not be like, we're really doing this? This is really a scene in the movie.
And they're just kind of there to be like, hey, you can't date a human, that's weird. We have to kill her now because she knows too much. And then everyone's like, no, you can't. I promise she's gonna get turned into a vampire. I saw it in a vision. And they're like, okay, fine. And that's it. Eclipse, the Cuckening. I call this one Eclipse, the Cuckening.
So, this video just keeps going. I like it so far. Number 3, Eclipse, is considered to be like the best movie, and in terms of flat out filmmaking, it is. It feels like it has a beginning, middle, and end, and things begin to make a little bit more sense. And you get kind of a sense of the world and the characters a little more. It's actually kind of a little nice film. It's not good. It's a Twilight movie. It's not my favorite by any means. I don't think it's anyone's favorite. Well, maybe if you were forced to watch them and you hated it and you only enjoyed some of the like decent filmmaking that happens, then yeah, it would be your favorite. But either you like buy into the story and the love story happening, in which case this would not be it. This wouldn't grasp you very much, because it's kind of more of an action-y kind of movie. But if you enjoy it, or if you enjoy it for the funniness, the B-movie elements, then yeah, like the last movie is going to be your favorite because it's hilarious.
Because that's exactly what this movie is. Forget about Veronica or whoever is trying to hunt down.
It's weird. It's like the last movie, number 5, is the best Twilight movie, but New Moon is the best movie. Now what I mean by that is the last movie has, it kind of like, it makes everything else that happens more entertaining. It grabs elements from all the movies and kind of like smashes them together. It adds so much insanity that it gives you what you love from a Twilight movie, which is the B movie, just wild ride, the nonsense, the poop of it all. It gives you like a poop tsunami, which is what you want. which is what you're in for, what you were hoping for, and it delivers. But New Moon, I like more than the others, although it's not the best Twilight movie, because it's one of the worst movies ever made, because it is so funny, so unintentionally hilarious. I think it, for just overall B-movie charm, it's like elevated beyond the entire franchise. It kind of stands, it stands alone, but also I guess in some ways it does stand side by side with like the first movie and the last two in its insanity, but it's just better at it. Whereas for a Twilight movie, if you're looking for a Twilight movie, the most Twilighty of the Twilights, it's the last one. And being Twilighty of a Twilight, to Twilight is to have a crappy movie full of insane plot points and characters who are up to no good.
Bella, because this movie is hot. Oh yeah, ooh-wee, whoo, ooh, yeehaw, yeehaw.
Oh my god, Dad, I'm a virgin.
It's greasier, I'll say that. The love triangle actually like comes into play. It brings the grease. Finally, the grease has been delivered. Whereas in New Moon, you have a lot of the like leading on of Jacob and the awful stuff. So one more thing I'll mention that I forgot to mention when talking about New Moon. So I saw New Moon in theaters, and it was a packed house. There was a ton of people there, mostly like young women and teenage girls. There's a scene where Bella like crashes the motorcycle that Jacob just spent like months building for her for free. She crashes it kind of intentionally to invoke a Edward hallucination. So then Jacob, I think maybe he was also riding a motorcycle or something, but he runs over. He might have like jumped off the motorcycle and ran over. It's been years, despite New Moon being one of my favorite films of all time. He runs over, but before he does, he like jumps off a motorcycle, takes his shirt off, and then runs over and helps Bella. When he takes his shirt off, the movie theater, right, just loaded with girls, all like moan. They're like, oh, like just this audible enjoyment of him taking his shirt off. And he's a shredded dude, right? So I don't blame him. It was just a very unique film going experience. I've never experienced anything like that. It was hilarious. Like literally, like everybody moans. Not everybody, but clearly multiple in the people in the theater audibly make a noise. And then immediately after that, like the whole theater erupts in laughter at people doing that. It was just really cool. It really kind of like elevated the film going experience. Most of the times I hate like audience interaction with movies, like when people laugh too much at something or overreact. I don't like.
So Victoria,
in this instance, it worked really well.
Or Fergie, as we have been calling her, is now trying to create an army of newborn, bloodthirsty vampires to take down Bella, since she is outnumbered by the Cullens. That's the main antagonizing plot point in this one. So the whole movie, the Cullen squad and the werewolf tribe are reluctantly working together to train and form an alliance, all to protect one girl. It's nuts. I feel like Bella really kinda likes that everyone's fighting over her.
I'm tired of this. From now on, I'm Switzerland, okay?
Is Bella supposed to be a plain Jane character so the audience can put themselves in her fantasy? Maybe. I don't care. Because Jasper, in his past, he's had to fight off newborn vampires. So he's the one kind of running the show and training everyone. And I loved learning about his backstory because he's from the Civil War era, from the South.
Yeah, it actually is like one of the most interesting points in the whole series is Jasper's backstory, because it's like, oh yeah, these people are like hundreds of years old. They've actually done interesting stuff. They've done stuff beyond this high school relationship drama. They have interesting things about them. They're actually going to show us some of that. Awesome.
With zero southern accent.
Pleasure to meet you.
Until this movie, he like sort of faked one.
Battle scars. Aren't enough of us to protect the town.
My apologies, man.
And it's awesome. Thank you, ma'am. It's a pleasure to meet you. Yeah. Oh, hey, Bella. How's it going? How have you been? Where did that accent come from? What are you talking about? Bella, I would bet some rootin' tootin' pecan pie on the windowsill on a Sunday when my grandmother came home that I always had this accent. You said you fought for the Confederates? But other than that, this movie really amps up the romance. Yeah, you thought it couldn't get any more steamy, did you? So Bella and Jacob obviously have a lot of chemistry, and Jacob is growing ever more frustrated that Bella wants to become a vampire and be with Edward, to the point where he literally assaults her, and she punches him in the face? This is when I was like, oh my god, I'm not Team Jacob or Team Edward, I am Team Charlie. If I was not his daughter and not 18, obviously. You get what I'm saying. He's hot. Then Edward gives Jacob a nice lesson on consent.
If you ever touch her against her will again,
Don't do this.
she's
here.
not
Don't-
sure what she wants.
Don't do this
Let me
here.
give you a clue. Wait for her to say the word.
Yeah, that's the like actual that's what happens in the movie. I mean, I don't know if I'd go so far to like I don't think it's not the worst Jacob moment by far. I mean, he's madly in love with the girl. She knows that he's madly in love with her. He just spent like 3 months spending all of his spare time making her a motorcycle. I mean, he shot his shot. He gets shot down. He tries to move on after this point. Like, I don't know. Of the horrible stuff he does, this is like maybe 8th on the list.
And I know this was a meme at the time, but Jacob is literally shirtless the entire movie. And I remembered it being somewhat of an exaggeration, but like, no dude. They knew what 12-year-old girls wanted, and they delivered. And then, Bella is basically begging Edward to f her the entire movie, and he finally ends up being like, no. It's too dangerous.
Ooh, I hope she talks about the cuck tent. There is an actual cuck tent that happens here. Like, it might have been the origin of the term cuck tent.
No,
You said that you wanted me to have every human experience.
not ones that will risk killing you.
You won't.
It's too dangerous.
What does that mean? This is alluded in this movie and future movies, that like it's too dangerous for them to have sex. Like, does he have a monster truck car? Is it spiky? Does it have like a rough texture? Like the glittery skin texture make his feel like sandpaper? He later says, oh no, it's just like we should get married first.
Believe me, I want to. I just want to be married to you first.
Don't let migraine pain lock you in the dark. Unlock.
I assume her character might be like 17 at this point.
Fine. So like they get engaged at this point. One of Edward's things is that he's an old school guy. So he wants to get married before doing the dirty.
He's old school. He's like, she said he was 109 in the first one, so he's 111. He's turning a new leaf. He wants to be married to this 17-year-old before he goes all the way. You know, he's just kicking it old school. He's like, 109, 111, going to high school, picking up chicks, old school, traditional.
But then why do we need to know how dangerous it is for them to have sex? I know why. That was rhetorical. But I'm just saying. And then as they're preparing for the big battle, they use Bella as bait for, of course, the mean vampires. And then they move her to a safer location, which happens to be atop the snowiest, coldest mountain. And she is turning into a popsicle. But Edward is cold because he's a vampire. But don't worry, Jacob is also there.
I am hotter than you.
And he's 108 degrees, baby.
108 degrees over here.
because he's a werewolf. So he cuddles Bella to keep her warm. And Edward and Jacob bond a little bit in the weirdest scene so far.
Yeah, they're literally, literally, this is the cuck tent. This is insane.
Jacob bond a little bit in the weird.
Like, so this is insane. This is like Bella kind of comes up with this at the same time. It's like, well, he's warm, so we need to cuddle. I need to cuddle shirtless Jacob. And Edward just watches. And it's like, what is this? What in the hell is this? Like, dude, it doesn't even make any sense. Why are they on top of a mountain, a snowy mountain? It's not like strategically advantageous to do this. Put her in like maybe it spreads her scent on a wider area, which like lures the people to her. But why does that have to be on a mountain? Just do it in a field. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense, but it's funny. It creates this weird cuck tent scene where he's just like warming up Bella.
Weirdest scene so far. So then, sneaky Edward, who gives a shit about the fight. The fight is happening at this point, but who cares? Edward purposefully lets Jacob overhear him and Bella talking about their engagement. And Jacob gets all upset and is like, I'm gonna go join the battle then, and maybe die. Because if you don't love me, then I might as well die, so I won't be a distraction for you.
Maybe I'll get myself killed and make it simple for you.
No! Toxic, 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 toxic! Both of them! So Bella's all like, no, Jacob, kiss me! And then they spend a while passionately making out on...
Yeah, a lot of people point to this as being the worst thing that Bella does. Like, this guy has been strung along and abused by her for quite a long time. And yeah, he's not a great guy. No, nobody is claiming that this guy's a great guy. He's definitely not. But she does string him along repeatedly, right? And then she does this. Let him go. He's literally a werewolf. Like, he's basically the leader of the werewolves. He's like the strongest of the werewolves. If he joins the battle, like, he'll be fine. There's other werewolves in the battle, I think, at this point. There's the Cullens. He's on their side. He would have been fine. Just let him go. Like, yeah, he's upset, but why would you do this? Why would you be like, kiss me, Jacob, and just lead the guy on further and just break the guy's heart so much more? Like, you've already been abusing this guy and leading him on and just destroying his life as you're causing this, like, but nearly, you're like one hair away from creating a werewolf versus vampire war because you're stringing this guy along. And you string him along even more instead of like making it easy for him to move on.
Top of a mountain, basically in
Jacob, I need you. Jacob, kiss me. Jacob, like, come in this cuck tent.
Front of Edward as she's engaged to Edward. Oh, Bella. Kiss me.
Like, I would kind of... I'm not saying that they should have done what I'm about to say, but it would at least kind of make some sense narratively if she just ended up with both of them. Like, yeah, that's greasy, but that's way less greasy than what ends up happening to Jacob by the end of the series. Like, you think things have been greasy so far. You think the age difference of 109 to 15 years old is greasy? Oh no, you haven't seen anything yet. Jacob outdoes that in what is the most insane thing like ever put to film.
Kiss me, Jacob. And when Bella's...
And like, what's wrong with that? Like, thruples exist. Bella creates this scenario of this like cuck tent, leads Jacob on. Be with both of them. They seem to be down with it. They could have, either one of them could have left that cuck tent at any point, but they stayed and they talked. As Edward read Jacob's thoughts. And he's like, he literally says, Jacob, can you like try to have pure thoughts? And Jacob like smirks at him. He's like, sorry, bro. No, he doesn't say that. I forget what he says, but it's like, hey, it is what it is. As he's like shirtless, cuddling Bella. It's so gross. Everything about this is gross. So actually, you're not going to believe me if you haven't seen these films and you don't know what ends up happening to these characters. But her ending up with Edward and Jacob and being a throuple would be way, way, way less greasy than what ends up happening.
Is finally done making out with Jacob, she goes back to Edward, and he isn't even remotely mad or upset.
I don't know what happened.
I love him.
I love you more.
I think later on in the franchise, there's at least a discussion of going to Paris.
I know.
So maybe
I'm telling you.
Maybe it was in the works. Maybe the author of the books just didn't quite pull the trigger on making it a throuple. But
I thought this while watching the earlier and later movies. I think at some point Edward started to enjoy being cucked, which is fine, to each their own, but I hadn't seen anyone talk about this when the movies were coming out. Then again, I was also 12, and the only thing that we really cared about was declaring on our Facebook walls if we were hashtag Team Edward or hashtag.
yeah, and like cuckery wasn't as big as it is now. It wasn't like, the term wasn't even really around at that point, and the concept wasn't maybe as popular. I don't really know, right? Like maybe there was tons of cucks at the time, but they just went by a different term. There's always been swingers and stuff, so I mean, clearly the fantasy here of whoever is consuming this content, of like the author, of the character Bella, of whoever can interject themselves into the character Bella. The fantasy isn't that you have these two guys who are like into you and you only date the one guy. The fantasy is probably like, I'm dating this guy and I'm getting this other guy on the side, right? Let's just call it what it is. A lot of people, they don't want to do that because that's kind of like immoral. But I can see having the fantasy. That's probably what's going on here. And yeah, I mean, it's vampires and werewolves. You're making everything about this as fantasy. Just make the fantasy come true. Have it where you have them both. I don't know. Why not? It's better than having one of them fall in love with the baby and then at the end imply that he's going to have intercourse with the baby when the baby turns like 6 years old or 8 years old or whatever it was. It might have been like 7 or 8 that they basically say that that a baby and I'll talk about it if she talks about the later movies. It's insane. It's so greasy.
Tag Team Jacob, where the only qualifications were who you thought were hotter. To be a 12-year-old girl again. I mean, the cover art for the movies were literally just the 3 of them. Not just Bella and Edward. Literally all 3 of them. All 3 of the throuple. So it's very clear that the main focus was not on the main villains. So the Cullen and Wolf army win the battle, of course, but Victoria and the newborn army leader guy find Bella's real location in the mountains, and we get a sick vampire fight scene. And now there are no more remaining members of the Black Eyed Peas, which concludes why they haven't had any major hits since 2012. Jacob got injured from the fight, but he'll be fine. Anyway, they end in this nice meadow again, and Alice is planning their wedding and Bella's planning to become a vampire. The end. This series is so wacky, and I'm so happy to be revisiting it again.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to rewatch this. Like, I've watched the franchise start to finish 3 times. And it was super enjoyable each one of those times. I love introducing new people to this. It's so weird because anybody who does take the leap and watch it, they're always taken by surprise. They're like, I had no idea. I can't believe this is like this. I never expected it to be this way. And that's an understandable reaction. I had that literally as I saw some of these movies in theaters. I'm like, this can't be being compared to Harry Potter. Like, Harry Potter, there's so much production value and thought and like the world building and so much like filmmaking and effort and acting and just everything that goes into it is so well done. Not all the time, but like Harry Potter is one of the best movie franchises in history, and Twilight is maybe the worst. So they're complete opposites, and there was literally people at the time of these like first couple movies where they were legitimately arguing that the Twilight franchise is better than the Harry Potter franchise. It's not. So it was genuinely bizarre to watch these for the first time. Maybe like, what are people talking about? You can't compare these two. One is this like well-made, awesome franchise of good movies, and the other is Twilight.
The next Twilight video, I'll be covering the last two movies, Breaking Dawn Part 1 and 2, and holy shit, I didn't think it could get any crazier, so I just have to make those their own separate video, especially so this one wouldn't be like 2 hours long. Overall, these films are really iconic and unique for their time and really defined an era and generation, and I'm so glad that we exist in the same timeline as the Twilight saga, because there's truly nothing like it.
Now, the last two movies, I feel the same way. The last two movies I could talk about for like 5 hours straight. There is so much to those last two movies that are just mind-blowing beyond belief. There's stuff where I was literally almost talking about them in this podcast where I'm like, wait, it's too deep of a rabbit hole. There's too much explanation to get into with this. I can't get into it right now, or this episode will easily be 3, 4, 5 hours long. And even the movies that she talked about here, the first 3 Twilights, there is tons of stuff that she didn't get around to mentioning. There is insanity. Like especially like start with the first one, and you will find that the baseball scene is like, you have to experience so much insanity before you get to that baseball scene that it kind of creates, it does this like thing to your mind where you are so like delirious from what you're watching that when you get to the baseball scene, you're like drained. You're just mentally drained. And then it's so like color corrected, and there's so much like action to the baseball scene. It's a wild ride. I haven't experienced too many films like it. I wish I could come up with one right now to where I could compare that experience, where it just throws a curveball at you, to make a baseball metaphor. I highly recommend this franchise. I highly recommend you check out Gabby Bell's videos. I highly recommend you like her videos and subscribe to her, and maybe give me a like too. I'd really appreciate it. I freaking love this franchise. And I forget if I watched the 4th movie in the theaters, but I definitely watched the 5th movie. And oh my god, I think I might have watched the 5th movie twice in theaters because I loved it so much. And that, oof, what an experience. So much to talk about. I can't wait to check out her next video and talk about this franchise some more, because her video about those movies is even longer. So hope you liked it. That was episode 2 of the Jasper podcast. Episode 3 might be the later Twilights, but I might touch on some other stuff before getting to those Twilight movies. Have a good one.